We're back again, and this time around we decided to do games we played in 2020 for the first time. Doesn't mean they came out in 2020, because we don't own a lot that came out in 2020 right now due to the fact that we were trying to catch up.
We played a lot of games off our shelf of shame. That was one of our quarantine goals. And so we played a lot of new games this year, but they weren't necessarily 2020 games. You know, there's a few games in here that are 2020 releases.
Yeah.
But there's a few that are lots older.
Yeah. One of them is not lots older, but Loveless and Babbage. And the last time we had this on there, I didn't really describe it very well. Actually, I was pretty awful with it. Basically, it gives you a bunch of programming options, and you're writing it down, you reveal them, you write them down, and what you're trying to do is get the right numbers in several locations. Basically, you're roll and writing without rolling or flipping in this case. Get the operations in order to get the right value so you can get a card that's worth points and give you special abilities. I think it's great. It's fun. It does make you go, it is timed, and you don't know, actually both you and I don't like timed games or real time, but this one worked really well.
A lot of mental math. It was a fun puzzle. It wasn't too bad. In general, we don't like real time because life is stressful enough. I don't need my games to be stressful. But that one worked. This is Welcome to. This is a roll and write as well. And you're trying to design pretty much a subdivision. And you have cards in front of you. And they're different actions with a house number, and you have to keep your house numbers in ascending order. And there's certain actions you can do, and certain things give you points. Some things actually take away points by doing them, and you're just trying to build the best. There's group goals as well that you can try to meet. And that's the in-game condition when those are all met. And both you can meet them, but the first person to meet them gets more points. There are a lot of cool different expansion ones for this. There's some holiday ones that I enjoy. This is one I think could be played virtually if you all had the, if you scanned in the sheet, because really there's nothing you touch other than your own sheet. Just need one person flipping. But really fun game. We bought a bunch of expansions this year because I really enjoyed it.
Now, Osprey Games came out with Undaunted. Now, I'm a miniature gamer. I play 40K, X-Wing, War Machine, Legion. Really like Legion right now. But I also love deck builders. This combines both of them. You have a scenario, you have a bunch of fields and different terrain, and you use a deck you've built with troops and the like to move your units around to accomplish a goal. It's not always kill either. Normally it's take certain areas, hold certain areas, or get to a certain spot. They have two. The Normandy I like, it's a little bit more squad style based. The other one though has vehicles and tanks and stuff, which is North Africa. Love them both, and this was one that, you know, I had lots of high hopes and it actually met them. So.
It's also the way you build your deck is very different. You're not buying them. You have certain actions that acquire them for you, and so it feels very different. Yeah,
your commanders are what allows you to allocate resources. So.
Yep. This is Rurik, Dawn of Kiev. This is something we kick-started, and we played for the first time this year. And I love the historical aspect. I'm a Russian historian, so of course I'm like, yay! But we really enjoyed it. He enjoyed it, I think, way more than he thought he would.
Yeah.
And we were really worried because as soon as I saw that there's this mechanism, there's this whole board where you're choosing actions on it, and usually that works. Auction mechanic, and usually it works horribly two-player. And this actually worked two-player. And so I was thrilled because this is a game that has that fun auction mechanic and it works two-player, which for us is a major win. So we're looking forward to it. I think we've already kickstarted the expansion for this.
Yeah, but that also, all right, inserts. Got to insert.
He did, okay, I've got to open this for you and show you. He looked at the insert, so when you pull out one of these, what's cool is this bottom comes out and here's all your pieces in their little things, and then they go back together so each person gets it. I'm not going to pull this all out, but there's a guide for how it goes in this box, and he practically like squealed with glee when he saw it. Oh, actually, here's the this whole thing, and this was like he liked the game just from the insert.
Well, I like the game too, but the insert makes setup so quick. We've talked about this one before, Rome. You like it, but I really love it. And this one we got and we played it for the first time this year. And I think I've talked about it 1 or 2 times maybe. Nah, just once. But it's an area control where when you completely control an area, when it fills up, you're putting your tokens out, you get it, and it gives you another set of actions to allow you to put down more tokens to claim area. And it just goes on until somebody's got, if I remember correctly, 10. You've got some artifacts that let you do certain things like flip orientation. And what you're doing is, when you use one of your actions, you have to flip one of your cards, and then you get to put your tokens in that order based on what that guy said. And there's certain things that adjust that, certain artifacts that let you change that. I think it's great. I like it, and it's an area control game. She doesn't mind.
What's cool is even when you lose the area control, they get the card, but you get a reward as well if you have a marker on there. So I feel like you get something. You don't always just lose.
And now I think that's the oldest one we have.
Yes. So this was a Facebook Marketplace purchase out of Michigan. He got really lucky, and there's another Facebook Marketplace one in this list too. And this was one that I'd been wanting to try for a while, and we found a deal on it, so we picked it up. And Queen Games can be kind of hit or miss. They've got some really awesome games and some not so great games. But this is really fun. You really get the sense that you are out excavating because you pull tokens out of a bag, and some are really good, and some are nothing. And there's a wide variety, and that's just, I think, the same thing when you're looking for anything. You know, I'm sure anyone who's been out there, you dig, and you know, sometimes it's like gold mining or anything else. And that there's a mechanic where how you travel, you have to account for the timing. The time mechanism's neat. It's one of those where you can go as far as you want, but then it gives the other player, if you get too far ahead, it gives them more actions. But there's definitely some interesting pieces there. There's the piece about what you're displaying in the museum. So there's a lot of pieces to it, but it works really well, flows really nicely.
Yep. All right, I've talked about it before. I'll talk about it again. This also came out 2020. I'll be honest. Part of the reason this may be so high every time is I didn't expect a whole lot out of it, to be honest. But it is a solid, medium weight game. 2-player, there's a lot of play, so it plays different. 3-player, it got weird. Like it really, there was a lot, weird's not the right term. But basically you're buying...
Intense.
Yeah, it became much more
It's better
intense.
at 3 or 4 players.
Yeah.
I think 2 players, there's not a lot of intensity. You don't feel a lot of push that I'm not going to get what I want. At 3 players, we were feeling that. And we've only got to play it once because, of course, you know, social distancing this year.
But we only got to play it once with 3 players. We played it a bunch, 2 players.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. We'd like to play it more with 3 or 4.
You're buying aircraft, and you're essentially also using cards to buy routes. And the person with the most shares of Pan Am at the end wins the game. Here's the funny part. Pan Am's buying your stuff. Each round you spend money to buy shares of Pan Am, but Pan Am will buy your routes. Random die roll will, as they spread out, because this is their optimal time. This is when they were at their heyday. So you're talking the golden age of aviation. Yes, aviation nerd. So you've got set collecting, using cards to buy routes. You've got an economic component, and with 3 players, it did. You started to go through.
I can't say anything about his aviation nerd history given what I admitted with Rurik. So yeah.
But yeah, that's a midweight target game. That's like $35.
Yep. We made Target. Well, it was still a Target. Find it in the back room. They had to go searching for it. This is Dice Forge, and this is the game that he picked out, but I ended up really liking. You get to change your dice sides. And I just find that really cool. And it actually works pretty good. It's kind of like a Lego in the way that it clips on and off. It's kind of a pain in the butt to get some of them off. We've thrown some of them across the kitchen playing them, and you have to go find them. But it's really fun in that you build up, and so you're making your die rolls better by what you're putting on there. So it's still the randomness of what comes up, but you're improving your odds of what you're getting as you're replacing different die sides. And I really enjoyed it way more than I thought I would.
Yeah.
And it was really a fun, different game this year. You know, it's one of those things that when you're changing it, you're like, is it going to work with this changing dice size? They actually got it to work. Like I said, a little hard to get off, but overall it works good, and they stay on, so you're not rolling them and your sides are popping off. So it works physically as well as mechanically, which is important in some of these games.
That was really fun, and that was on a whim. It came into Rob's, and I was like, I'll grab it. So MJ's. All right. So MJ's, we got Dice Forge. This one was pure Kickstarter. I liked Arcadia Quest, but it had some things that drug it down. And when I heard about Starcadia Quest, I kind of watched the stuff, and I wanted to know what they did. And they had done improvements. And this is streamlined, and I thought it was great. We played through the campaign, the 4 games, shorter campaigns. If you really were diehards, you could get through it easily in a day. Probably about, I'd say 6 hours, counting swapping out the tiles and stuff.
Well, if you weren't playing with a 10 to 12-year-old, it would also go faster.
That's true. A lot of these we played during quarantine. We did get rid of our Shelf of Shame. We've got one left that we got to do that we just picked up.
We have 2 on our Shelf of Shame.
I am sorry, we have 2.
We have 2.
But Starcadia Quest is, you got 2 guys, you're trying to complete assignments and goals at the same time. You're going to try and beat up your opponents. It's not a co-op. Not a co-op. It's fun. You're in between campaign games. Your guys get better. Really easy upgrade system.
And it helps as the adults to win when the 2 kids beat up on each other.
Yep.
Or they decide they're just randomly attacking someone for no reason. This is Trekking the World, and we have Trekking the National Parks as well, but Trekking the World was the new one for this year. And this is a really nice improvement on Trekking the National Parks. If you enjoyed trekking, and trekking is a really just fun, medium, lighter game.
Right.
It's definitely a light game. You're just going from park to park, collecting. It's set collection. We're on the board. This adds a really nice layer to it. I wouldn't say it's still not in any way, probably even medium. But it's definitely heavier than Trekking the National Parks. There's much more layers to it. I think there's much more strategic decision making you can make in it, but it's still got the really pretty feel to it. I really feel like I'm doing around it in a world right now where I can't travel. This is a fun little way to jaunt around and see some cool places that I probably will never get to, but makes me want to go to a couple. This is another one with a pretty nice insert.
Well, actually, all of yours had. That Dice Forge is good too, but yeah, this one's really...
This one came with that insert, and he looked at that and went, ooh!
Anything that speeds up setting up a game, I'm a happy man.
Yeah.
And definitely, Rurik is medium. I would say Pan Am's kind of more towards the medium. That's definitely lighter. This one's heavier. I'm going to tell you, the theme sounds great. Heaven and Ale. You're making beer. This is a themeless game.
Oh God, it's so themeless. That was my comment we finished. I don't feel like I made any beer.
But the game itself is you're attempting to get points at the end of the game by having your lowest resource being at a certain point, because that's the maximum number of beer you can make. Your brewmaster decides how good it is, and you do that by buying tiles, placing them on your board, and then activating settlements, which everything around them activates.
Yeah, I activate monks.
You can also activate... No, because you also... You're going to argue with me. You surround a town. What happens?
Oh, that's right. And then there's the monks. And
then your monks. You can actually surround and use monks to do the same thing if you can activate them. Once you activate the tiles, you either get resources, money, and what it is, it's got a action track. And you can always go forward. You can never go back. So... if you go too far forward, other players are going to be catching up to you and jumping around. So jumping around and getting every action you missed. I love that mechanic where I can go as far as I want, but everybody else gets to take anything that I left behind, kind of like Marco Polo. I like this one a lot. This one turned out to be good, but it is themeless. It is dry and themeless, but I love it, and that's weird for me.
Well, and the board's cool because there's a sunny side and a dark side, a shaded side, and that's the sunny side gives you resources, the shaded side gives you money,
Yep.
and you've got to kind of balance that as you go through the game.
Yep.
This was a Kickstarter that came this year. This is One Small Step, and I love the historical Academy games. I love them all, pretty much.
Yeah.
Even the ones I don't like, I like cry over trying to convince myself I like, even if I don't like them. But this one's Space Race, which meant that he liked it a lot too. It really does feel like the Space Race. You can play 4 players, but it's a 2-player game.
Yeah.
Really, just you play 2 teams, but to me, it's a 2-player game. Don't let it fool you. But really fun mechanics. You really feel like you're doing it. A lot of historical, just like all the Academy games, you're going to feel like you can learn a lot. You can really take your time and get a lot out of it. So, but you know, it's also just fun. And my goal on these is always, can I upset history? So.
All right. That's the 12 games that came, we went through. These are kind of the top 12 games that we played that we feel we really enjoyed, but we played a lot.
Well, and there's a couple more that might have made the list, but we haven't played them enough yet. Something that we just played was Cleopatra and the Society of Architects. That might very well have made it if I would have played it more than once at this point. You were mentioning something else, I think, that if you'd played a second time.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
But there's a number of games that we just haven't got to the table enough to feel like we knew them well enough to judge them. I know that when I polled, we had about 50 new to us games for this game. And it's probably higher than that. That's just what I got because, as I said, we played through all our Wall of Shame this year.
So we're entering the holiday season, so happy holidays, and we'll come up with some more stuff for you guys later. Thanks, and